There's a reason why you're drawn to the dark, a reason why traditional love and light spirituality has never fully resonated with you, because you know the truth. True power and transformation comes from working with and embracing the shadows. You're not here for superficial spirituality, and you know that witchcraft and dark mysticism is the real thing. In this video, I'm breaking down exactly what dark mysticism is, why the dark divine feminine in particular is the key to unlocking your full potential, and how stepping into this path will change everything. If you've ever felt the call of dark goddesses or of doing witchcraft or magic or mysticism, then this is the video for you, because we're going to get into exactly why this is so important and powerful. Hi Celestial Darklings, I'm Zila, the founder of the Nightshade Sanctum Mystery School for witches, the dark mystic courses, and of course the one and only Nightshade Sanctum Priestess path for those who are called to walk with goddesses. Today we're unraveling the mysteries of dark mysticism, the sacred path of the dark divine feminine. If you are called to embrace your shadows, reclaim your power, and awaken the deepest parts of your soul, then this is for you. Be sure to stay till the end of the video, because I'm going to explain the one thing that so many people get wrong about goddesses, and how if you don't know this one thing, it could be blocking your full magical potential and power. Today we're going to talk about the meaning of dark mysticism, why the dark divine feminine is particularly important and how it differs from the light divine feminine. And we're going to talk about how this path differs from other traditional spiritual paths, and why embracing the dark is absolutely crucial for spiritual evolution, personal growth, empowerment, and unlocking your full potential. Dark mysticism is a path of self-healing and self-transformation through using tools and practices like shadow work and working with dark goddesses, the dark divine feminine, magic, and witchcraft. There are a lot of misconceptions about the three terms dark mysticism, dark goddesses, and dark divine feminine because of some connotations that the word dark carries. So I want to clear up before we continue that in this context, the words dark and light are referring to different layers of the human psyche. So where the light is the part of our psyche that we're conscious of, we're aware of, we have awareness about it, the dark refers to those parts of our psyche that lie beneath the surface in the realm of the subconscious and the unconscious. So that is why shadow work is such a key tool when we're talking about this path, because it's about exploring deeper layers of your psychology in order to bring those parts of ourselves into the realm of consciousness that may have previously been undiscovered, suppressed, or repressed. So it's about raw authenticity, sovereignty, and embracing all parts of the self, whether unconscious or conscious. So when we're talking about the divine feminine, it often can be seen in terms of two different parts of the divine feminine, the light and the dark divine feminine. When we grow up, we tend to be conditioned to act and perform in a way that upholds the mandates of our patriarchal society. So what ends up happening is that as women, we get conditioned to embody those traits and personality aspects that are aligned with and support the patriarchy. And these tend to be the light divine feminine behaviors, belief systems, and archetypes. Whereas the dark divine feminine are those parts of ourselves that we tend to be conditioned to put into the realm of subconscious. So they can be parts of ourselves that tend to be very outspoken against authority, that are very, very independent and even defiant, and that tend to undermine the patriarchy. The reason why dark mysticism is so powerful is because it puts us back in touch with those parts of ourselves where our true power actually lies, because the darkness, the dark part of our psyche, especially as women, tends to be where a lot of our superpowers are lying dormant. And it also tends to be parts of ourselves that if we embodied this more, we would be better equipped to challenge existing power structures that don't serve humanity as a whole. So the light path tends to value more purity and conformity, basically those traits of the feminine that uphold the patriarchy, whereas the dark path is more about embracing all aspects of ourselves, both light and dark, but in particular those that lead to our true empowerment and independence, such as notions of the goddess or of the divine feminine as crone or hag, rather than simply maiden or mother. So this is ultimately a path of liberation and wholeness, and it's really important because it is a part of the sacred medicine of healing patriarchal wounds, not just within ourselves, but within society as a whole. But how then do we actually work with the dark divine feminine? Well, the answer lies with the dark goddesses, archetypes that historically, even since ancient times, have embodied those parts of our psyche and our collective consciousness that does not really align with the patriarchy. And therefore, a lot of these goddesses have either been erased from history altogether or light-washed into conforming light divine feminine archetypes that exist today. In order to reconnect more powerfully with the dark divine feminine within, the best possible way is to work with dark goddesses. These are goddesses that tend to be fierce, and they rule the realms of destruction, chaos, the underworld, death, and rebirth. You know, the darker parts of the human experience, and they are forces of transformation, liberation, rebellion, alchemy, and rebirth. Now, historically speaking, the dark goddesses have in many cases been vilified or demonized because of their threat to the patriarchy and their role in feminine power. The patriarchal system requires conformity, and it fears the raw, unapologetic feminine power. And so throughout history, the patriarchal narrative has really cast these goddesses as villains in many of even their own stories. And so we have to do the work to go back and understand who they are in order to get a clearer picture of these goddesses and why they are so incredible for us. And that's what we do in the Dark Mystic Path. We're all about going through original literature and understanding who these goddesses are without the external conditioning of the patriarchal narratives and the patriarchal lens. And as we do this, we get closer and closer to fully connecting with and reawakening our sovereign self, the version of us that is unbound by these external and completely unnecessary limitations cast upon us by society. One characteristic of the Dark Mystic Path is that we're particularly interested in what we call the initiatory descent. We see it coming through in stories of some of these ancient goddesses, but it involves a descent to the underworld, undergoing a transformation and emerging renewed and more empowered. And actually, the first instance of this myth is that of the goddess Inanna, also known as Ishtar. This is actually the oldest known myth in human history. It was written down over 4,000 years ago, and it was about a goddess. So in this story, she descends to the underworld, she dies, and she is then reborn. So it's also our first known instance of the resurrection myth, which I'm sure you recognize from Christian and Abrahamic cultures as well. But the original tale of this myth was about a goddess. And many goddesses actually display this myth in different ways. So for example, the goddess Persephone descends to the underworld for wintertime, and then she emerges back in the overworld during spring. And then you also have, for example, the goddess Lilith, who exiled from the Garden of Eden, was demonized and villainized through the Middle Ages until today, where she's re-emerged as a figure of empowerment and sovereignty. And so essentially these myths for a lot of these goddesses that we work with show how transformation happens through an initiatory experience. And if you have yourself experienced something like a dark night of the soul or certain challenges, then it's a very big sign that you've actually been called to work deeper with the dark divine feminine and the dark goddesses. The notion of the initiatory descent actually shows us also how by descending into the underworld of our psyche, we can emerge renewed, transformed, and way more resilient. So if you feel called to walk more of a dark mystic path, here are a few ways that you can start doing that right now. And the first suggestion is of course going to be to work with dark goddesses. You can choose a dark goddess and just start with her. Go deep with her, understand her myths, actually go back and look at her original myths, and also always try to read them knowing that they were written through a patriarchal lens. Do the work to connect with her through meditation and astral travel. Go and visit her in her own realm. And you can also set up an altar and just start bringing her and inviting her into your daily life. And that in its own is going to be a really powerful way to start to see these changes within yourself as you connect more and more with this raw, unfiltered, unapologetic feminine power that lies within you. Of course, shadow work is also a really important way to connect with the dark divine feminine, and this means doing a lot of self-reflection and understanding our own behavior. So actually doing a daily inventory or audit, if you will, of your behavior, reflecting, seeing when you were wrong, what you did wrong, what your part in things is, how maybe, unresolved trauma and things from the past is leading to you repeating the same cycles and behaviors today, and just doing the work to firstly understand it and heal it as well. So with shadow work, it's really important that it's accompanied by a change in behavior. In the dark divine feminine and dark mystic path, we're not about this superficial fix. For example, empty apologies. We're all about actually doing the change in behavior work behind it too. Another really powerful way that we walk the dark mystic path is by working with Baneful Botanicals. So these are the deadly witch herbs. Of course, the Baneful Botanicals can be absolutely deadly because they are the most poisonous plants in existence. So I do recommend that in the beginning you work with them energetically rather than physically until you know what you are doing. And energetic ways of working with them can involve things like sigils. You can also include representation of that Baneful Botanical on your altar or in your magical workings. And then a really incredible way that you can go deep with the Baneful Botanicals is by working with their plants spirits. Just like we have animal guides, we also have plant guides, and the Baneful Botanical guides are some of the most incredible, fierce and protective guides in existence, and a really empowering way to start going deep with the dark mystic path. Start doing lots of spell work. So spell work, magic, witchcraft, these fall within the realm of the dark divine feminine. They are a very clear expression of the exact power that the patriarchy fears. They went so far as the witch trials in order to suppress the feminine power in this form. So doing spell work and starting to connect with your witchy mystic self is not only a really powerful practice for self-transformation, for manifestation, for creating the life that you want, but it's also a beautiful and sacred way of rebelling against power structures that sought to make you small, sought to make you dependent, and to make you conform. And the final way that you can start really embodying the dark mystic path today is by honoring sacred rebellion. And that means choosing today to stop compromising parts of yourselves, advocating for yourself a lot more. Start using the word no, which is a sacred word, and setting those sacred boundaries, protecting your own energy and well-being. Refusing to just sit down, shut up, and conform. Okay, we're not about that in the dark mystic path. We're about celebrating ourselves. We're about sacred self-expression and raw authenticity, sensuality, allowing ourselves to enjoy the pleasures of life, just showing up exactly as we are in our full power, no matter what anyone else thinks of us. It's all about protecting your own energy, your own well-being and resources, because from very, very young as women, we've been conditioned to be the nurturers, and we tend to therefore be over-givers. And so one of the powerful ways that we can start deconditioning this is to start to walk a path of sacred rebellion, where we choose not to do those things and to prioritize ourselves and our own well-being so much more, because ultimately that's how we change the world. And when women are constantly making themselves smaller and sacrificing themselves, we tend to pass those cycles on to the future generations as well. So the dark mystic path is also a path of ancestral healing, where we say, no, this ends with us. Going forward, we want the future generations to be equal and liberated. So I told you that at the end of the video, I would explain the one thing that so many people get wrong about goddesses and how you could be unknowingly blocking your own power by making this big mistake. And the mistake is viewing goddesses only through the lens of the patriarchy. So I've already explained that many goddesses have been light washed. And so the truth is, there is so much more to many of the goddesses that you are already familiar with. For example, goddesses tend to be viewed through how they relate to male characters or male gods in their stories and their myths. That means that they're often relegated to the roles of mother or sexual object. That's basically tends to be their roles. And if they're not that, then they're, villainized, demonized, they're seductresses or demons or really dangerous characters of some kind. Even the lighter goddesses often have incredible dark goddess roots and origins that have been lost to us and become very clear when you go back to the original literature or what we know about them. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples now, starting with the goddess Demeter. A lot of people see Demeter as a goddess of the harvest or agriculture, but she's actually, of course, so much more than that. She embodies the mysteries of life and death, as many agricultural goddesses did actually. And for this reason, she is very much associated with the realm of the dead. And she actually has serious, beautiful, chthonic aspects to her as well. And we see how powerful she was when we look at her historical veneration. Even in the patriarchal context of ancient Greece and Rome, Demeter was revered in a huge and powerful way. We see that coming through the Eleusinian mysteries. Her daughter Persephone was also very revered, and Persephone, I don't know about you guys, but when I first encountered her at age 10 to 15 or so, she was explained to me as a spring goddess or a maiden goddess, or even associated with flowers and things, which is such a classic example of the light washing that I'm talking about, because Persephone is queen of the underworld. Her name literally means killer of light. And in the ancient cultures, she couldn't be named. They would use euphemisms to refer to her, or they would just call her she who could not be named. And her veneration was so major. We see it coming through in the Orphic hymns, where she plays a big role, and so does Demeter. But people actually wrote hymns and sent their prayers and petitions to the goddess Persephone rather than the god Hades. Yet in modern discourse, Hades is all we think of and hear about when we think of the underworld. And that is such a classic example of the light washing and the erasure of feminine power. Other examples are the goddess Aphrodite and Venus. So they tend to only be viewed as important because of their fertility aspects, but they were so much more than that. In many cases, these fertility goddesses were also goddesses of war, such as Freya and Ishtar as well. And the goddess Aphrodite, or Venus, is actually a direct descendant of her predecessor from Mesopotamia, Ishtar or Inanna. And she is so much more than just a sex or a fertility goddess. She is an incredible force of raw, unfiltered feminine power. She also actually has chthonic elements to her as well, and incredible powers of magnetism and allure. These are parts of her that were very much feared, and that is another reason why she is such an incredible goddess to work with for feminine empowerment. She's also about the pleasure principle. She's a perfect medicine for those of us who tend to have been conditioned to always put other people's needs and desires above our own. Working with Aphrodite is a great way to start really honoring our own desires, our own needs, and our own wants. There are so many more examples of this. Even the goddess Hera, who was viewed just as the wife of Zeus, was so powerful in ancient times that she had her own cult, and she's actually referenced in the literature as a chthonic deity, meaning that she is associated with the realm of the dead. Whereas nowadays we know her as the aggressor in Heracles' story, or as a jealous wife of Zeus, and already you can see that there's got to be more to the story, and let me tell you, there absolutely is. Oh my goodness, there is so much more I could say on this topic, but that is definitely going to be a topic for another video. I can also get into all all of these goddesses and so much more in other videos. So comment below if you have a question or if there's a particular topic you would like me to make a video on. So I'm sure you can tell by now that dark mysticism is not for the faint of heart. It's for the courageous. It's for those of us who are called to arise. We're called to courage and resilience. It's often for those of us who have been through a lot in our lives or in our past. And it is a worldwide movement of the feminine reawakening to personal power. If any of this resonates with you, then hit the subscribe button and don't forget to like this video, and let us know in the comments below if there's a particular goddess that you're interested in. And if you're ready to step further into this path, then you can take the free quiz in the description of this video to find out what your mystic archetype is and receive a free 7-day journey to help you unlock the secrets in your mystic personality, all completely for free. Thank you so much for going on this dark mystic journey with me today. Until the next video, much love and blessed be. About raw authenticity. Why can't I speak today? A lot of people see Demeter as an agricultural. A lot of goddess see archetypes without, while deconditioning patriarchal notions of them.